It might actually be the most derivative one of all. I mean, Christ, the same house.
Maybe so. But you forgot the first rule of surviving a stab movie. Never answer the...
I'm bored.
Wait!
And welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking, I fucking hate Goldfrapp. We're talking, we could see how far they bounce. And we're talking, your conversation skills are really deteriorating as the day goes on. And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace. And we're talking, it's just so easy to blame a kid, isn't it?
Oh boy, the quotes are kind of endless from this movie, aren't they?
Oh, Joe, I think 80% of the notes I took are just lines of dialogue. But everyone, we are discussing David Slade's 2005 masterpiece, Hard Candy, as the concluding chapter of our 4-week run on toxic masculinity.
Yes, folks, we recognize that we've been calling it Toxic Masculinity Month, and there is another week left in this month, but 4 seemed like it would be more than enough.
Yeah. I mean, there's an endless supply of horror films involving toxic masculinity, but we were like, 4 weeks is a bit much, so, we'll end it there.
Yeah. But I gotta say, I mean, it's a pleasure, ? To revisit Hard Candy. This is a tough one, but not as tough, I would argue, as something like Funny Games or Dead Girl.
Yeah, I think, it's because it's the predator. It's the male who suffers from toxic masculinity, among other things. Who's the victim in this movie?
Well, I mean, victim in the way that things deservedly happen to him.
Right. Like, yes.
I mean, you can be both the victim and deserving of it, and that is exactly what this movie is doing.
100%. And it's really funny, too, like, looking at reactions, because some people, there are times they're like, oh my God, I feel so bad for him. And you've got to think to yourself, well, why? Why do you feel bad for this? Because there were people that were walking out of it being like, well, he might not have been that bad. And it's like, the opening scene, he's flat out, like, picking up a 14-year-old girl.
Yeah. And actually, folks, before we get too far into this, because I was thinking back on this, we've only covered, I think, one other title that has involved a creative person who has transitioned since the time the film was made. So I think the closest comparison would be Bound with Lily and Lana Wachowski. But of course, they're not actors in the film, so we didn't refer to them too much after the production part of the episode. So for the purposes of this episode, when we're referring to the actor, Elliot Page, we will be using his pronouns. And when we are talking about the character of Haley, we will be using she, her pronouns.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, honestly, it adds such an interesting extra layer to the reads you can make of this film.
Oh, yes. It's one of the reasons why I was really excited to revisit this film.
Well, so did you, this had a very limited release, which I'll go into during the production, but did you see this in theaters?
No, this was definitely a university DVD rental. I was intrigued by the poster art because it is very striking, very Little Red Riding Hood finds herself on
a bear trap.
There we go. Thank you. Finds herself on a bear trap. And, I was always very curious, like, what exactly is this movie about? What is it doing? And it's got recognizable actors because, of course, Elliot Page is Canadian royalty. And then we also have Patrick Wilson, who, of course, has been in numerous things. At the time, not as popular, but I knew him as a character actor.
Oh, no. I've got his number down. So I honestly, truthfully, did not realize Patrick Wilson came from Broadway. Like,
oh, okay.
2-time Tony-nominated actor, both for The Full Monty and for the revival of Oklahoma, like around 2000, 2002.
Nice.
And then he had, basically, when he was cast in this, he was already in the Phantom of the Opera, and that was like, it's funny to hear David Slade and the producers talk about casting him because they're like, oh yeah, that was supposed to be that was going to be this big huge thing, like super successful blockbuster, and so we were so happy to get him. And I was like,
he landed a star. Oh god, no, never mind.
Well, also he has the worst wig in that movie. Like, I love Patrick Wilson. He is not the reason to see Phantom of the Opera.
No.
But yeah, no, and so it makes sense, though, because he did Angels in America, then he did Phantom of the Opera, and then this, which, to be honest, could be a play if you were, like, mistaken.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, this has a very stagey feeling, if not for David Slade's camera work, which is keeping the action going. But yeah, this is a two-hander in nearly a single location.
Yeah, this is a movie. So it was Sundance in 2005, but it didn't come out. We get a release until 2006. So this would have come out the end of my junior year of high school, and I definitely bought this, and I showed it to as many people as I could.
Okay. Did you find it subversive? Is that what attracted you to it?
Yeah, I remember reading a lot of press and reviews about it. It's, again, like, with the subject matter, which is controversial. Like, I was like, well, oh my God, I have to see this movie. And when its widest release is 150 theaters, I couldn't see this in theaters. Right. So I bought it and I loved it. And yeah, through high school and college, I watched this a lot because I kept showing it to people. But this was my first rewatch in at least 10 years.
Okay. Did you find that it held up for you, or were you... I mean, it's always different watching things for the pod, right? Because inevitably you're looking at it through a more critical eye.
Yeah, but even then, honestly, look, this was still a 5-star film for me. I gave it 5 stars way back when. It is still 5 stars for me now.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. How did this hold up for you?
Yeah, I've got this at somewhere between a 4 and a 4.5. I do think that at times the pacing gets a little bit for me.
Yeah.
But I think that's also because it's very harrowing. So in some ways it's emotionally exhausting.
Yeah.
But I mean, I still really like this. I think it still plays really well. I think it still gets you when it is trying to actively get you, and it works.
Okay, I guess before we go into the production then, do we want to offer any content warnings for this? Outside of, everyone, if you've never seen this, one of the main characters in this movie is a pedophile. But I don't think there's any, content outside of that merits a content warning.
No, it's mostly just feelings of discomfort. But even the way it's shot, you don't actually see anything in this film. So it's more disturbing as opposed to, oh, this is graphic. Like, it is upsetting, but it's in the ways that...
In the ways it's intended to be,
I was going to say
though.
In the ways it was intended to, but it's like, well, you could say that about literally all the films we programmed in this block.
If anything, the best thing to come out of this block of films is that I'm really proud / happy with the conversations we've had, because these are very murky, tricky waters to navigate. And I don't think there's necessarily a right or, well, there probably is a wrong way to handle some of these things, but I think we've done an okay job of having some of these tough conversations.
Sure, yeah. I mean, people often give us really good feedback on the challenging films / episodes, and that has been the case so far. Of course, we're recording this in a bit of a bubble because we haven't gotten all of the episodes out by the time we're recording this one.
Yeah, well, Murder by Numbers is an easy one.
Sure. I don't think people are going to have deep emotional stakes about Murder by Numbers, but we'll see.
We'll see. Okay, well, let's go into how this got made, because it wasn't that it was necessarily difficult to get made, but a lot of studios and many major studios turned this down.
Oh, you mean pedophilia is not good business?
No.
Shocking no one.
So this all starts in the mind of producer David W. Higgins. In the early 2000s, he had started his own production company called Launchpad Productions with the idea that he could get a film made that could be shot in his own house, because he wanted to go outside the studio system and not deal with all of that bullshit. So one day he was watching 2020, and one of the stories he saw was about a phenomenon of younger girls in Japan who would go online and lure older businessmen for a hookup, and when they arrived, they would proceed to beat the shit out of them when they got there. Now, the thing with this, because I had heard this story before, but I thought it was a more direct, it's girls luring pedophiles. It was just regular businessmen.
Okay.
Now, granted, I don't know how old they were, if they were the age of 14, so then I guess maybe then they would be pedophiles. But there wasn't much more detail offered up besides that.
Okay, interesting.
But taking that basic idea and knowing that he wanted the majority of the film to take place in a single location, he sought out, a playwright to write the script.
There we go.
So this led him to Brian Nelson, who would go on to write 30 Days of Night, which is also a David Slade film, but also 2010's Devil, which is also a single location film set in an elevator.
Right. I've never seen Devil, but I've heard people, that was back when we were still actively hating on M. Night, and people were like, ooh, this is maybe a bit of a return to form.
Yeah, one, because he didn't direct that. He produced it.
Oh, but of course, remember, anything he touched, we wanted to classify as his.
Oh, yeah, there was that YouTube video where it was like, from the mind of M. Night Shyamalan, and like you have like the theater full of people just burst into laughter.
So fucking rude.
It sucks. Devil, by the way, very solid. Not great, but very solid.
Okay, yeah, I think that's more or less the consensus I've heard.
Yeah. But anyway, so both Higgins and Nelson knew this would be a film driven by dialogue and not big action sequences. So after getting the basic premise down, they had to figure out, shockingly, the plot. They had planned on making it a mystery of sorts, with the little girl in the film trying to figure out who the guy was, what he had done. You know, was he going to be a pedophile, a voyeur, a molester, or something worse?
Okay.
Towards the end of that process, they were like, wait, what if like the climactic reveal was that she already knew everything all along, which then turned the film from a mystery into a much more psychological mind game.
You know what? That sounds like a much better decision, because I don't think I would enjoy this if it was a mystery. Like, ooh, what exactly has he done? It's so much more interesting to watch her put him through the paces.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because is it going to be, oh, is he actually evil or is she the evil one? No. That is much less interesting. Like, you should know from the get-go, which, again, you should, based on the opening scene of this movie, that he is a piece of shit.
Yeah, and I think maybe something like a mystery could work with other subject matter, but particularly the way that this is cast, the way that it's written, I don't want to be questioning about this particular subject matter. I would rather have the confirmation.
I agree. But yeah, so as a writer, Nelson would generally be uninvolved in the shooting process, but he wrote the script under the Writers Guild low-budget agreement, which basically meant he would take less money up front in exchange for more creative opportunities and control on set that he might not have gotten in another situation.
Oh, weird. I don't think I've ever heard of that.
Yeah, it's a thing. So they met a bunch of directors, but were turned off by a lot of them, because apparently what would happen is these directors would come in and they would all talk about, oh yeah, this is the visual style I'm going to do. It's going to look like this and this. I'm going to shoot it like this. But no one was talking about the story of the film.
Yes. The least important thing of any film.
Exactly.
Story.
Well, but this is what makes this so interesting with the David Slade thing, because David Slade, this is his feature debut, so he was known primarily right now for directing music videos.
Right.
Which are, very visual heavy. So you would expect a music video director to come in and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to shoot it like this. It's going to be so awesome. Like, jack off motion. But he had just moved to LA from his native Britain and become buddy-buddy with Ridley and Tony Scott. And I
was going to say that to me is like the David Fincher Alien 3 thing, where it's like, no, you can take me seriously because I do actually want to make a feature film. I'm not looking to make an extended music video.
Exactly. So he walks in and he spends 90% of the meeting talking about the story and the script. And that's what drew them to him.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, when it comes to financing, they went out to all the big studios like Paramount and Warner Brothers, but they went to like Warner Brothers Independent, Fox Searchlight, other little ones. Pretty much all of them loved the script, saying, oh my God, we would never buy this, but we'd love to meet the writer.
What a great calling card. We won't give you money, but we are very eager to see what you'll do.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, oh yeah, we love this. We just can't sell this movie.
I mean, folks, we have to remember, movies are a money-making industry. Like, people aren't getting into this because they love spending hundreds of millions of dollars and then not getting any of it back. Like, people want to see a return on investment. Exactly.
So there was one executive that Higgins gave the script to who loved it, but he couldn't tell it to his boss. And he didn't name this rep, so I don't know who this was. But this executive passed it on to another producer named Roseanne Korenberg. And she was what we call a producer's rep, which means she would go out to find financing for movies that are coming together. Shoot the script to 10 different people who she thought might be interested in financing the film.
Okay.
Out of those 10, they got 6 yeses. And well, that's the thing. So that's apparently very rare. She told Higgins, like, I would, like, normally in situations like this, I'd be lucky to get 1.
Whoa. Okay. Huh.
Yeah. This is calling to mind the conversation we had about Tremors, because I feel like that movie had an equally tough time, like, getting sold for financing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so out of those 6 financiers, they picked the one that would give them the most freedom so they wouldn't be asked to change anything, and the most exposure, and they also kept the budget under $1 million. So we're looking at a $950,000 budget for this movie.
Shit.
Yes. And this financier was called Vulcan Pictures.
Know what I love? Okay, so folks, in case you need context, A sub $1 million movie, we would absolutely classify this as an indie. And you may look at it and say, yeah, there's basically 2 actors in a single location. Mm-hmm. Bear in mind that episodes of your favorite HBO shows routinely cost somewhere between $3 and $7 million.
Oh, yeah. It's wild. And honestly, look, I mean, it's not hard to see, like, why it's so cheap. We're all in one house. But you're right. Mm-hmm. I think it's like the way this film is shot makes it look a lot more expensive than it actually is.
Yes.
So, okay, when it came to casting, they knew they had to get Haley first, because if they didn't get the right actor for this part, then it wouldn't come together. They had to find someone who was commanding, who was intense, but also had the vulnerability of a 14-year-old.
Right. Yeah, good luck with that.
Well, exactly. So they saw 30 to 40 actors a day, totaling about 300 people. And,
oh my God.
Well, and so here's the thing, though. They struggled, but not for the reason you would expect. So a lot of people that came in, even the 14-year-olds, would look 14, but they would act like they were 21 because, and I quote, that's just the culture in LA.
Fair. Okay. Yeah. I actually figured that would be the issue, is that they would know how to play the steeliness of the character or the maturity angle, but maybe not the vulnerability that convinces us as an audience, oh, this really is a 14-year-old.
Exactly. So Elliot Page had just come off a British film called Mouth to Mouth, a film that he had shaved his head for. So they watched his audition tape, and interestingly enough, they were really confused because they were like, again, I'm using quotes, and so I'm going to...
Yep. Misgender.
You misgender, but like just quotes, because this is from the DVD at the time. But they said, oh yeah, she came in and we said, this looks like a 12-year-old boy with a buzz cut. Like, it's a great audition tape, but like, we can't, it's a boy. Then they realized, oh, it's a girl with the shaved head. And so they were like, that's our Haley.
Interesting. And yes, folks, we are definitely going to have the conversation about how the film almost anticipates the journey that Elliot Page would go on, but also how it reframes the context through a new lens when you're like, oh, what happens when this becomes a narrative about an older man preying on a boy?
Yes. Well, and that's the thing. I do wonder if Haley's look in the film, because she has like the boy haircut.
It's a very androgynous look, but I have to feel like that's by design.
Well, because I wonder like, if Haley looked like a quote unquote typical girl, because I saw some of the storyboards, and one of the storyboards, Haley has pigtails.
Okay.
But I wonder if that makes her look too young. Too young? Yeah. So I think it works here, but yeah, Haley is very androgynous.
Yeah, and it's probably, a marriage of convenience where Elliot Page is growing his hair back out after shaving it for that role, and they don't want to wait. They don't want to maybe try to go with an expensive hairpiece because, again, minimal budget. But there are other ways that they could have made Haley look more traditionally feminine, and I just think it adds this interesting extra dimension to the film, particularly in scenes where, she tries on the t-shirt and we see her in her bra and that kind of stuff, and you're like, there's just fascinating things with androgyny, and I love how the movie acknowledges it and plays with it.
Yeah, because the film doesn't make a lot of statements about Patrick Wilson's sexuality outside of the fact that he likes underage girls. But again, when you look at Haley, you're kind of like, but one of these things is not like the other.
He likes them young. And then we may leave it at that.
But yeah, Patrick Wilson, they were like, oh my God, we got the Phantom of the Opera guy. That's great.
Sure.
Sandra Oh came on because she had actually worked with Page before on the 2004 Canadian film Will Be Wonderful. They're both Canadian, so they walked in the same circles, I guess.
Yes.
So this film was shot over 18 and a half days in June and July of 2004, which Slade found refreshing because, and I quote, no matter what happens after 3 6-day weeks, it's all over. So what we've got is what we have to run with.
Oh, that sounds terrifying.
Yeah, they're doing about 9 pages of the script a day, I think is what they said.
Oh, holy cow. But I mean, here's the thing. When you watch the film, it does make sense because this is dialogue. This is all performance, right? I mean, we'll talk about how Slade uses the camera, but at the end of the day, yeah, it's really the 2 actors moving around in this single location.
And I will say, y'all, if you have the DVD or Blue of this, there are 2 commentaries, one with Slade and the writer Nelson, but also one with Patrick Wilson and Elliot Page. Of course, it is from 2005, 2006, so it's like back then. But it's actually a delight to listen to because they're very lighthearted about it.
Yeah, you were telling me that off air, and I had to wonder if it was this is either just a gig for them. So, yes, it deals with heavy material, but it's a movie. It's a job that they're doing. Or if it's, let's lighten the mood by being fun and enjoying ourselves because this movie is so fucking dark.
I mean, that's the thing, I think we have a tendency to forget that this is still just a job for a lot of these people.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's the thing. When you're going through it, unless you're truly method, this is a job, right? Like you go in, you say the lines, you give a great performance, but that is your craft, right? Unless you're fucking Jared Leto and taking this home and sending used condoms to your co-stars, like, yeah, this is a job.
Yeah. So, okay, they finish filming in the middle of July, but they have to get a cut of the movie to submit to Sundance by September. So they've got like a month and a half to get this done. They finished it right at the deadline, barely make it in, but managed to land a spot in the Sundance Midnighter section, premiering on the Sunday night.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So the night of the premiere, the Dolby surround sound system in the theater, this is the Egyptian theater, stopped working. And Slade was not having that because he was like, no, we can't show this movie without the sound it's meant to have.
Clearly.
So they postpone, they basically won't let anyone into the theater. They're like, no, get the fucking Dolby guy out here. Let's fix this shit. Whoa. I don't know exactly how late they pushed the screening to, but bear in mind, this is already a midnighter.
Yeah.
Anyway, they got it fixed and the screening started late, but the team was kind of disappointed because when the end credits rolled, the audience rushed out of the theater.
Because they were exhausted.
No, here's the thing. So, they were like, what's going on? Why is this happening? And someone goes, oh yeah, no, it's not that they didn't like the movie.
Buying spree?
Yes. It's that this theater was filled with people who were trying to find films to distribute. And so they had people rushing out of the theater, calling their bosses saying, yo, I've got a movie that you want to buy and distribute right now.
Fuck, yes. Which, then makes me beg the question, well, what happened? How come this didn't get wider exposure?
So, okay, within an hour of the screening getting out, they had 3 offers for distribution. And the next day, they made a deal with Lionsgate, and it secured worldwide distribution within 48 hours of the premiere.
Ugh, wild.
Their second screening was Tuesday night. And so they were like, hey, we've already got worldwide distribution. We're good. We can just sit and watch this movie and relax.
Just screen it. We don't care about the sound anymore.
Well, and I mean, this. So everyone, if you don't know, a lot of times, movies replay in the second half of the festival. And so, you make all your picks for the first half, you go see the movie. And then for the second half, you're really going off of word of mouth.
Yeah, it's all about that buzz. What generated heat?
And this absolutely did. So that Tuesday night screening, the audience, they said, was a lot more quiet. They weren't as vocal about what they were seeing. But in the post-screening Q&A, there was one, I think it was a male audience member who was furious, taking David Slade to task, being what gives you the right to make this movie? And Slade is I listened to this man go on and on for minutes. And I wanted to answer his question, but I couldn't find a question in his rant. He was just yelling about this movie and why it was made and why would we make this and blah, 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 blah.
It's more of a rant and less of a question.
Which will happen at these kind of Q&As.
All the fucking time. I cannot do a Q&A anymore. I leave every time I go to a film festival. I just can't do a Q&A because you get the most inane ranters and or, first, just let me tell everybody how much I love that movie. Oh, it was so good. Also, could you maybe explain the ending? No. Although
I will say, and I kind of pinged this to you earlier this week when I was watching this, and I was like, I get that the fact that one of these characters being a pedophile and one of these being a child who does the things she does in this movie, I guess is controversial inherently.
Yeah.
But I guess, I don't know, I'm a little surprised by especially this guy's. It's what gives you the right to make this movie? I guess, I don't know. And maybe I am too jaded because I'm looking at this and I'm like, even for 2005, I don't find this particularly controversial. But maybe that's just me being very jaded.
Yeah, this is tricky, right? Because you messaged me that and I said, well, obviously it's the subject matter, This is a huge taboo, particularly in North America. We get really upset about the idea of older men preying on our young girls, right? So it makes sense to me that it is controversial, but I feel like the movie is addressing that in a way that is both cathartic. This to me is a secret rape revenge film. Yeah. It's a torture porn against a pedophile. And I don't know. I mean, I gather that if you're watching it, you would be incensed because so much of it is about this man preying on this girl. But I also feel that requires you to willfully ignore that the girl is actually the one who's in charge the entire movie.
Exactly. And then that's my thing. This is a movie that I don't think for 1 minute is siding with the pedophile. I don't think this movie has any moral gray areas. Like, I think its opinions and its stance on things is like very clear. But
yes, we are on Haley's side the entire film. Although you did say earlier, that there are some people who feel that her actions go beyond what is necessary, or is he really that bad a guy? So I wonder if it's just that people wanted even more black and whiteness to this. Like, we needed to see the pictures of what he was doing to Donna, or we needed to have him be more forthright in his desire, like, for sexual activity with Haley, which I disagree with.
Well, because and this maybe is where we're getting really real here with the subject of a pedophile, but it's like, but that's how pedophiles are. Like, they don't come across as creepy, like, serial killers. Like, they know how to be sneaky to worm their way into a child's life.
Exactly. It's why the movie literally opens with that I am conversation.
Oh, God. Honestly, I will say this. Like the first 20 minutes of this movie, I think are the most uncomfortable part of the film.
Yes, it's the ick factor is high right out of the gate, but again, by design, because the movie wants you to feel all the things so that you can really go on this journey with them.
Yeah. But perhaps because of the subject matter and the potential controversy, it took Lionsgate 15 months to release Hard Candy.
So any heat that the movie had is now gone.
Well, yeah. So, it has the Sundance premiere January of 2005. It gets a very limited release on April 10th, 2006, where it screened at one theater in Los Angeles and one in New York, but grossed nearly $30,000 per theater.
Hey. Okay.
Highest per-screen average in the top 50 that weekend. And but again, as I said, its widest release was 152 theaters at the end of the month. So... It goes on to gross $1 million domestically and $6 million overseas for a worldwide gross of $7 million. And so, I mean, it makes its money back, but it's also just kind of like, honestly, I like a lot of Lionsgate's output, but I think they have a history of botching releases. And granted, everyone involved seemed to be fine with what we got here, maybe because they were like, well, yeah, it's a pedophile movie. Like, it's not going to be on 3,000 screens.
Right. And again, I mean, think about the time that we're talking about. This is still the height of DVD rentals. So I wonder if they thought, you know what, this seems like a film that people are going to rent and watch in the privacy of their own home, as opposed to, hey, Doug, what you going out to see on Friday night at the movie theaters? Oh, the pedophile movie? Okay, Doug, I'm going to back away slowly.
Yeah, exactly. So, but what does surprise me, though, is that while critical reception was mostly positive, we're still looking at a 67% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, no, fuck that. That is way too low.
Because I guess I have a memory of this being highly critically acclaimed.
Me too, yeah.
The ones who were vocal about it, like were really vocal about it. But yeah, I guess there were enough naysayers who were like, nope, not my movie.
That is wild. I feel like if this film came out... what do you think? 10 years later, this would be universally heralded.
Well, I think also if this had come out today, this would have gotten more of a wide release.
Me too.
Yeah. Not to say this subject matter is more accepted today, but I mean, again, I feel like I keep saying post Me Too, like in all of these episodes we've been doing.
Sure.
But it's just one of those things where I wonder how this movie would play, like if it was released today in this post Me Too world.
Well, okay. Let me give you the closest comparison that I could think of that is contemporary. It is a post-Me Too film. I think that your perfect double bill or your most recent contemporary equivalent...
Let me guess. Is it Promising Young Woman?
It is Promising Young Woman. There we go. And not just because it's, someone avenging a crime on behalf of someone else, but I think because this plays a bit like a secret rape revenge film.
And I thought that the entire time, so I was like, yeah, this really feels like a rape revenge film, albeit one in which we are not witnessing the rape in question,
exactly.
Which is also what Promising Young Woman does.
Yeah. Which I think is the smartest way to go, particularly if you are a male creative team. Like, male writer, male director, you're automatically going to get hit with accusations that you are not the right person to be doing this unless you've got a really fresh take or you are active with your consultations. But I think at the end of the day, this is a smart way to do it. You're still addressing the subject, but you're not doing it in an inflammatory or purposefully sensational kind of way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is wild because, again, we're talking about a fucking pedophile.
We're talking about a pedophile. But again, one that people were like, well, is he really a pedophile?
Oh my God. How do you watch this movie and walk away being like, he didn't seem like that bad a guy?
Well, and I think that's a testament to Patrick Wilson's performance in this film.
100%.
Because I think there are times where, I mean, and we'll talk about it in the plot, but like there are times where I think human nature, you just want to be like, oh God, like, I do feel for him, but then you have to keep reminding yourself, but he's a pedophile.
Well, it's that. I mean, Patrick Wilson, fantastic actor. He is legitimately great in this movie. Mm-hmm. Both of these leads are fantastic, but there's an inherent likability and charm to him where you think,
yep,
he's hot. He's white. He kind of looks like he could be a former pinup model. So, like, I trust him implicitly. It's what we as a society have created, which is that attractive people, white people, wealthy people are all inherently more trustworthy just because.
Yeah, speaking of wealthy, did your house porn meter go off in this one?
It did. I like the house a lot.
but yeah, so 67% on Rotten Tomatoes with an average score of 6.4 out of 10, whereas Letterboxd users have given this a 7 out of 10.
No. Just absolutely no. This is a minimum 4 out of 5. This is an 80%er. We need to rectify this immediately.
Y'all heard it here first. Joe said it.
Fellow critics, get on this.
All right. And before I pass it over to you, Joe, really quick, because Elliot Page released his memoir, I think earlier this year, called Page Boy, and there wasn't a ton of information about hard candy in it, but there isn't, anecdote sounds just like too light of a term, but apparently after the wrap party for this movie, a crew member took Elliot Page home and did sexually assault him.
Oh my God, no.
Yeah. Fuck. Not a ton of detail was gone into more outside of that, but that is the big piece on hard candy from his memoir.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. So, what happens in this movie, Joe?
Oh my God. Well, thanks for that transition.
I know. I meant to say that earlier, but I couldn't think of a good segue, and so here we are.
Yeah. Okay, before I get into it, I'm going to reference an article throughout this by Hadass S. Wade called What Are Little Girls Made Of? Abjection and the Queer Child in Hard Candy. I'm not going to use every piece of this article because it really is more about like Julia Kristeva's idea of abjection and Barbara Creed and that kind of stuff. But suffice to say, Hadass reads this as a bit of an amalgamation between torture porn, rape revenge, and slasher. So it's an interesting piece, and I liked pieces of it in terms of the way we're going to look at this through a queer lens.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we open on a sexualized online chat between Lensman319 and Thong Girl 14. And right away, it's right there in their usernames. We've got man and girl.
Did you frequent chat rooms a lot when you were a teenager? Were they really in vogue when you were a teenager?
They were, but for me around my age, it was principally for fandom. So like I was active on the Bronze, which was the site for Buffy fans.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes, if you know anything about me, it totally makes sense. But even when I was a little bit older, when things like chat roulette got really popular, where you would just like randomly go between rooms and you actually had your camera on so you could typically see what people look like. The people would wear disguises, or sometimes it would just be their penis. I never really got into that kind of thing. I wasn't interested in meeting people anonymously. I just wanted to post something and then be able to come back and see a response later.
Yeah, so before I had come out officially, there was a chat. Oh God, I think it was called like 123 Gay Teen Chat or Gay Teen Chat 123.
Right. Okay.
And I was on this because I didn't know any other gay people, so I was trying to find gay people to talk to. And looking back on it, I probably talked to more than a couple of pedophiles.
Yes, undoubtedly so. Or even just like adults who were looking for other people and not realizing that they were talking to someone who was underage.
And I remember distinctly having conversations with some people where I would say I was 14 or 15, however old I was at the time, and they would be like, "Oh no, like no,
yeah,
like we're not talking to you." Even though it was called Gay Teen Chat 123, but maybe that just was made by a pedophile.
I mean, here's the thing. As soon as I said, oh, they probably didn't even know that you were that age, I'm like, no, I'm literally doing what people excuse Patrick Wilson for doing in this film. It's like, it's there in the title. Like, you should be able to determine. And as soon as you figure that out, you need to do what Haley says, which is, I'm not encouraging this. I'm shutting it down. I'm backing away.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I'm sitting here trying to find other gay teens to talk to. And granted, this is like a worldwide national site. So it wasn't even people like in my neighborhood in like small town in suburbs of Texas. But, it's, yeah, I don't know. I look back and I'm kind of like, oh, God, like I was walking a fine line there.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where maybe it's a little less scary if it stays online, but then the minute that you get into where the conversation, for example, in this film goes, where it says, hey, we should finally meet up. And it's like, you're only meeting up for one reason.
She says hook up too. And I think she means like meet up, like in terms of hook up. But yeah, honestly, the thing that made me cringe the most was when, you know, she's like, get a little bossy when you're hot, don't you? Whoa. Can't do it.
I mean, the interesting thing is that at one point she will say all of the anti-rape, pro-feminist rhetoric around sexual assault, and I completely agree with all of it. But yeah, there is this moniker among rapists as well as pedophiles that it's like, oh, well, they were asking for it. Like, they were mature for their age. They knew what they were doing. They led me on. I couldn't help it. My dick took me into this situation. You're like, yeah, your dick, as in you are responsible because you are the adult. And
you are the adult. That's all. Yeah, it's so easy to blame a kid. Like, oh, she was asking for it. She was so sexy. She's a kid.
She's a fucking kid. Like, you have all the power. There is no excuse.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so they make plans to meet up for the first time at this cafe called Nighthawks, and this is our introduction to Haley Starr, who is played by Elliot Page, and we are introduced to Haley as she is eating a tiramisu, and like, there's so many close-ups on mouths and eyes in this movie, so it's very, very intimate.
I think it's chocolate cake, because to me this is like the equivalent of milk, right? Like we're infantilizing her.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, a tiramisu is a kind of chocolate coffee.
There's
cake.
no chocolate in tiramisu. I mean, minus the dusting of cocoa powder on top, but that shit is ladyfingers dipped in espresso with some whatever the cream is.
Sure. All this to say, yes, it is infantilizing. It's very like, what would a child order at a cafe? A sweet dessert. And Haley ends up with chocolate all over her mouth. So, of course, when we get this lingering voyeuristic shot of Jeff as he comes in, played by, of course, Patrick Wilson, it's one of those moments where we are put into the position of the pedophile, of the voyeur. And I think that's also what makes a lot of these early scenes so uncomfortable.
Yeah, the moment he wipes the chocolate off of her lips.
Gross. It's so gross.
No.
Yeah. I'm going to bring in Hadass right off the top here. So they say Haley's first appearance on camera further characterizes her as a seductive innocent, her childlike glee over the dessert contrasting with her moans, which infuse the moment with sexuality.
Yeah.
And I love this because so much of this movie is that interplay between what is sex, what is performance, and also what is like, you should still know better.
100%. I'm glad they mentioned the moans, though, because, yeah, like, the first thing we hear from her is her moaning over this dessert. And it's gross.
Well, this is called a honey trap. You are baiting that line, baby.
Yeah. I think also, too, Paige was 16 when he filmed this.
He looks so young.
Well, it's really fun, too, because when you listen to the commentary with him and Patrick Wilson, I guess because it's 2006, so he's either in the middle of filming or about to film X-Men The Last Stand, because they reference it a lot.
Oh, wild. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just realized they're both superhero people now, too.
Right?
I mean, who isn't at this point? But...
Yeah.
Okay, so Haley observes that he doesn't look like he'd need to meet women online, and he counters that you can't be sure, so he actually prefers to meet people face-to-face because he is a photographer, but also because people's faces lie.
Mm-hmm.
To which I'm like, I love this 2005 argument.
Well, doesn't she put it, do you think because we've been chatting for 3 weeks, you know everything about me?
Yeah. And of course, we'll later find out that basically every time she says something he doesn't understand, he just pauses and goes and researches it.
That's kind of like, and that's the thing, right? Like, this is a very heavy, serious movie, but there are so many funny things in it when she catches him in a lie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It sounded a lot like an Amazon Music review.
You use the same quotes about Goldfrapp that they do on Amazon.com.
Sidebar, though, Haley is wrong. Goldfrapp is gay.
I don't know who Goldfrapp is.
It's both gay and great. I meant to say great, but it was a Freudian slip.
Well, you'll be happy to know that Paige is fine with Goldfrapp.
Oh, good. Okay. Good for him. Okay, so they sit down to eat their myriad of desserts, and we see a very obvious poster for a missing girl, Donna Maurer.
That might come back later.
Yep, we are prepping you to pay attention later. So it's important to note that Haley is very literate. She's dropping all kinds of too old for her age references in terms of like, oh, she reads Zadie Smith. She's auditing a university anatomy class because her dad is a professor and all these other things. And it's just like, oh, yes, again, we are baiting the hook.
Oh, it's so good. He is eating it hook, line, and sinker.
Yes. Yeah. Jeff is full of compliments, very full of praise, reassurance, you know, like everything that he's doing is the right amount of smarm for an adult viewer where you're like, oh, I see how you do this.
I guess maybe that's where a lot of the controversy is coming from. And maybe I'm off the mark here, but it's like we're essentially watching a pedophile groom a minor, even though the minor is aware and playing into it.
Well, and as you said, the opening act of this film is so uncomfortable. So if you go into this hoping for a feel-good, like, fuck this pedophile movie, you will get it. But like a rape revenge film, you got to get through the challenging part first.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's just that in this film, we don't actually, like, there's no sexual assault. We don't see any dead bodies. We don't even see a castration. Like, everything is left to our imaginations, but that doesn't dilute how effective it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he buys her a Nighthawk t-shirt and then takes her to the bathroom so that she can model it. He literally uses the word model. Yes, he's a photographer, but it's also just like, no, 14-year-old girl.
Oh, God. She opens the door and, like, flashes him bra. Oof.
Mm-hmm. And he says, you're driving me crazy.
And I'm like, you're in public, sir.
Yeah, like, that's the thing. I'm just like, how have you not been caught? Because you are brazen. What was this cafe attendant thinking as the two of you are ordering all of that? Like, that better be your fucking daughter.
Yeah, 100%.
Which, unfortunately, is probably what most people would just default assume and then go about their day.
And their age difference, I believe, is 18 years, at least in the world of the film.
Right, okay. So after she tries on the t-shirt and then comes back out, she complains that because she's so young, she's always in bed and therefore missing everything that happens at night, like a recent Goldfrapp concert. And Jeff claims, oh, I was there. I've got a bootleg MP3, but, ooh, it's at my house.
There is... this moment is so pathetic for him because it's like, God, like the lengths you have to go to, quote unquote, impress this 14-year-old girl.
Mm-hmm. But it works, right? That's the thing.
Oh, yeah.
He does it just well enough that it's not pathetic, it's enticing.
Oh,
and I think
sure.
we're also meant to see some of these interactions through her point of view where it's, here's this sophisticated older man who's willing to give me the time of day. Like, we understand implicitly how the attraction works. It's just very uncomfortable to see it play out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Squirming in your seat.
Yeah, just a little bit. So, one of the interesting things about this whole in-person interaction is that it actually mirrors their interaction online that we saw. So in some ways it's like, oh, did you think it was just online? No, we can actually play this game in person as well.
Yeah.
So we head up to the rooftop parking lot, and this is where Jeff obeys Haley's request to worship her by kissing her feet.
Gross. Like,
I mean, we're not shaming foot fetishy stuff. It's more, again, it's this brazen public display, right?
The adult kissing the foot of a minor in a very sexually charged way.
But it does foreshadow the relationship dynamic, right? Where she is actually in charge of this. She's ordering him around. If he wants to get what he wants, he has to listen to her.
Yeah. Well, because that's the thing, right? We're flipping the narrative because in normal pedophilic relationships or...
oh my God. Trace, tell me all you know about
no, I just
normal pedophilic relationships.
It's about the power, right? Like,
yes.
So we have the flip here, right? Where, the child does have the power in this movie.
Yes, absolutely. And you could argue that that's probably the only way it could get made unless we were doing some kind of uber Debbie Downer kind of PSA movie.
I've never seen Happiness. Have you?
Oh, the Todd Solondz film?
Yes.
I've not seen it either.
And everyone even know this is a movie in which Dylan Baker plays a pedophile. I think it's not a vignette movie, but it's like about a bunch of different people.
Yeah, he's one of the characters.
Yes. And so I know it was controversial at the time. This was something I heard about in film school, but it's really hard to find, I think.
Oh, okay.
But I would love to know how this compares to the portrayal of a pedophile in that movie and whether or not it is exploitative.
Okay.
But that's an entirely different movie, I'm sorry.
Hang on one sec, because I've got another example.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking of Little Children, am I?
Oh, that is a pedophile movie.
Yeah.
Also with Patrick Wilson.
Patrick Wilson.
but he's not the pedophile. It's Jackie Earle Haley.
Yes, yeah. And I wonder if that's the other kind of distinction that separates this film and maybe made that one audience member at Sundance so irate, is that this isn't a background character where we can get some kind of reprieve from this if we are feeling so uncomfortable.
Right.
It's like, this is the main person. This is the main storyline. So there is no escaping it.
But I haven't seen Happiness. I have seen Little Children, but it's like, it's not a vendetta movie against the pedophiles. No. I don't think in those movies. Like, it's very much, these are characters and we are treating them as human beings.
Yeah. I was a bit taken aback by Hadass and some other people saying, this literally comes out less than a year after Saw. It's made the same year technically, but released a little later. But if you look at it in some ways, this is definitely a torture porn movie, right?
I don't know. I guess because I associate copious amounts of gore. I also, for more perspective too, it comes out, it gets its quote unquote release 3 months after Hostel gets a release.
There we go. Yes. Yeah. So Saw, Hostel, where I guess it's the focusing on the suffering of an individual who is, being threatened with torture, with pain, with suffering. But of course, as you said earlier, the flip or the inverse, the subversiveness of this movie is that it's a person we actively want to see hurt.
See, I think that's the thing, though, and I think that's why I would put it more in the Venn diagram of torture porn and rape revenge. I would put it more on the rape revenge side than I would the torture porn side.
I agree. Okay. So, yes, after the foot worship, we throw on our Little Red Riding hoodie and we drive in slow motion off to Jeff's house.
Yeah, and we're still on a date.
Still on the date. Okay, so we get to Jeff's place, and this is when Haley refuses a drink that she hasn't mixed herself, and she says, this is something that all young people are cautioned against. So she proceeds to then make them screwdrivers.
I love this. And it's, I guess, if you know the movie you're into, I think you might pick up on what's happening here. But if you don't know what this movie is, which, do you think that's...
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to think. If you're going to show someone this movie, would you tell them what it was about?
It's interesting. I actually meant to go back and rewatch the trailer to see how it was sold, because obviously I mentioned that poster art, and that very much makes you think, oh, we're watching this girl, she's in danger. And of course, that's where the fun comes around. But yeah, we don't really drag this out too far. I think we reveal that she's in charge and she has...
Like 20 minutes in.
Yeah, she's roofied him by about the 20 to 25 minute mark.
I will say I did watch the trailer. The trailer is really good because it showcases a very intense film, but does not tell you what it is.
Oh, okay, there we go.
So yeah, unless you were reading about it, if you had just seen the trailer and went to go see this movie, you wouldn't walk in knowing it's about a pedophile.
Okay. You know what? I was about to say, I love that. And then I'm like, no, I think I love a trailer that keeps a certain amount of mystery.
Yeah, even on this blurb when they're talking about the marketing, they're like, it's honestly a miracle we got a trailer as good as we did.
Wow. Yeah. This would be very easy to mismarket.
Yeah. And I think if this was a studio film, it would have been mismarketed. It would have been butchered. They would have had to change so many things about this.
Yeah.
So thank God they got to make the movie they wanted to make.
Yeah. That's the perk of having that lower budget, is that you are often held less accountable by bigwigs who want to interfere with the creative vision.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we're drinking these drinks, we're toasting a little bit, and Haley is looking around the space and appreciating all of the photographs of the models that Jeff has worked with, because they're all over the wall, which basically means that Jeff's bachelor pad is filled with pictures of underage girls.
Yeah, but it's art.
It is art. Yes. So I'm going to bring in a rather lengthy quote from Hadass, because I think that this is really important, not just to the narrative, but the way that Slade shoots this.
Okay.
So the walls of Jeff's living room operate as his portfolio. There are many pictures of girls, one whose torso is amputated by the framing of the photo, while another is seemingly headless because of the photograph's angle. The subjects are framed, i.e. photographs, within frames, i.e. walls, within the frame, i.e. the camera. So we're seeing like frame on frame on frame kind of deal. And then decapitated at the head by this framing. So I would argue I don't think we ever actually see a single full picture of a girl except for Janelle.
Right, and there's a reason for that. But that's, I guess that goes into the, because, you know, she says, like, oh, these are your, this is your porn. Like, these pictures are your porn.
100%.
But they're headless torsos.
Yep. So Hadass continues, the framing and the interplay of colors give the interior of Jeff's house an ominous maze-like appearance. The photographs point to a violence with no blood evidence. The decapitated girls in the photo are reminders of Donna Mayer, robbed of their gaze by the photographer. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, it goes to cement how horrible of a person Jeff is. But again, if you're not paying attention to that, then that's not something you're going to pick up on, at least on a first watch.
No, like, especially because it's not like Slade is lingering over these pictures. We're seeing them in the background, but it's not as though we're zeroing in on them as, hey, this is a clue.
Yeah, we're not doing what we did with the Donna Mawer's missing poster.
Exactly. Yeah. Which even that I would say is subtle enough that if you're not paying attention, you might miss the fact that it's a missing girl poster.
It holds on that poster just long enough for you to be like, oh, there's a reason we're holding on this for like a second more.
Yeah. But you just kind of think, oh, it's to symbolize that there is danger for young girls afoot. Like, you need to be conscious of your surroundings.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Not realizing, oh, the whole movie we're watching is about that fucking missing girl. Okay, so Jeff acknowledges that he has not slept with most of these models because, of course, they're underage, and he understands the moral and ethical issues surrounding that. He's still a good guy, Trace.
I'm so confused as to why he's even telling this to her.
Because he thinks that she's stupid and that he can confuse her.
Right, but then in an alternate reality where Haley was one of his victims, like, wouldn't she realize, oh, he does fuck underage girls?
Yeah,
I don't know.
would think that she would figure it out pretty quickly.
Yeah, but whatever.
So in the bedroom, Ellie finds a picture, as we mentioned, of Janelle, who is played by Odessa Ray. At the time, she was going by the name Jennifer Holmes. And Haley actually recognizes this woman. She's very well known. She's been on the cover of magazines and so on. And of course, we've got Jeff being all humble about it. You know, oh yeah, you know, I knew her once upon a time. It was really different, blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, yeah, you're such a good guy.
Oh my God. And then she's like, you get more impressive every second because you know a super famous model.
But the thing is, she won't let it go. She keeps peppering him with questions about it. And this is where his attitude does begin to change. So he gets curt and he doesn't want to talk about Janelle anymore. So he ends up shifting the conversation back to, let me tell you what makes a great photo. And then we get into this mock photo thing where she's on the couch, she's, posing, and he gets mad at her.
So I will say, did you notice anything specific about the color palette of this film?
So I definitely noticed that there's a cool blue filter that applies in various points. And like when he wakes up after, oops, she's actually roofied his screwdriver. So he goes down here. And when he wakes up, he's tied to a chair. And immediately it seems like a much cooler film.
Yeah. So basically, whenever the tone is angry, we get the blue. Whenever it's not, we get the red. And usually it switches between shots or between scenes. But I swear there's a couple of shots in here where it happens mid-shot. So like we're looking at Elliot Page's face and it goes from like the red to the blue.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I do love that because I think, again, it's subtle enough that if you're not paying attention, you may just notice a change in the way you perceive the film. Like it's a vibe, it's a mood, it's a tone kind of thing. Whereas if you can start to train yourself to notice changes in color, it's often very deliberate. They're trying, like they being the filmmakers or the creative team, they're trying to influence the way that you're feeling about particular scenes or characters.
Yeah, and red is all over. I mean, his wall in one of the in his studio is just like pure blood red, and so it's and also like the house is very angular. It's very geometric.
Yeah, it's ordered, but also confusing and easy to get lost in.
Yes.
Yeah, so he awakens and Haley has also changed her personality. So all of a sudden now she's apologizing for possibly drugging him too much. She just didn't know the dose because, you know, she stole this medicine from her father's cabinet.
And she's just a 14-year-old.
But I love that it is the 14-year-old act, but we're talking about, like, I fully drugged you. I'm in control now. This is now my narrative.
Page does this a lot in his performance, and I think it's fantastic because, and that's the vulnerability, right? Because he will sometimes shift into the more 14-year-old, like typical vulnerable mindset, whether it's, you know, pretending, just giving a fake out to fuck with Jeff. But sometimes there's like no rhyme or reason for it, where it's like, oh, like he's doing this like childish performance because. Yeah.
Page's performance is spectacular in the way that he's able to modulate that based on what's going on in the scene, but also just, it's, I don't know, it's volatile in the way that feels believable to me for an upset 14-year-old person.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is one of those times where, you know, Jeff is like, okay, this is over, like playtime is over, untie me right now. And Haley just goes, playtime is over, and it's time to wake up.
Oh, and this has been too, like, so when we know, she's been, like, scouting him this entire time. She's like, I waited till today because Mr. Laughlin's at work, and the Kraskows, well, they're vacationing in Santa Barbara, but I can't have some pedestrian strolling by when you're screaming out loud, so I'm gonna mace your ass.
Fully macing in the open mouth every time Jeff tries to scream.
I will say, so there's a handful, like 10 minutes of deleted scenes on this Blu-ray, and most of them are fine to cut, but there is one where she has to call her friend Tracy, who I think she says is her big sister, but it's her friend Tracy.
Okay.
To say, hey, I'm going to call my mom and tell her that, like, you know, I'm staying at your place. And then she calls her mom and tells her that in front of Jeff, but she has a spray bottle of bleach, like, pointed, like, a centimeter away from his eye.
Ooh.
And we keep cutting back and forth between the conversation she's having with her mom and then an extreme close-up of Jeff's eye, which is, like, leaking tears as this bleach bottle is right up against him.
Interesting. I like that a lot. I can imagine that they just took it out because they probably didn't need more scenes.
Well, and I think, too, it's to help add to the mystery of Haley because, I mean, spoiler alert, by the end of the film, we still don't really know if anything we've learned about Haley in this film is true or not. And so... Including the name and her age. There was going to be a line, too, where she was like, maybe not even 14 years old, which I'm glad they cut that.
Yeah, we don't need that.
Well, because they wanted to make sure, this needs to be a child doing this.
Yeah, and if you say maybe not even 14, then that complicates it. It might lead people to think, oh, she actually is older, and that's how she's been able to pull all this off. I love the idea that this is a 14-year-old who is just absolutely fucking with this dude. And
Paige, I mean, despite being 2 years older in real life, like, does look the part.
Does, yes, yeah. As I said earlier, he looks so young. And I think that that's also what really sells it. You know, we said that there's a vulnerability to the performance, but like just the physicality of it.
Right.
He is small, he's skinny, you know. There are moments of physical violence in this film where the two actors get into an altercation and, you know, at one point Haley gets injured and you feel for her. Like, it looks like she is in pain because she's tiny.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we kind of get a little bit of background about how Haley has managed to, like, do all this research and why she picked this date and all that other kind of stuff. And this is where Jeff will start. He will do it for the rest of the film. He just keeps saying, like, I'm not doing the things that you're saying I'm doing. You definitely can't tie me to anything to do with Donna, but also don't call me a pedophile. Don't call me a molester. I've never hurt anyone.
Which... liar.
Oh, full lies. 100% lies. Yeah.
But I do love I fucking hate Goldfrapp.
So this is where Haley challenges that typical pedophilic defense that girls are just asking for it or that they were acting like adults. And I do love this line because it's like, if you only leave this movie with one line that you should probably live your entire life by, let it be, just because a girl knows how to imitate a woman does not mean she's ready to do what a woman does.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of choice lines from Haley where it's like, yep.
It's just the fucking truth. Yep.
But that's why, though, again, when you read reports of people that are like, oh, man, I don't know, man, she kind of went too far. And I guess we'll discuss when we get to the castration scene. But again, but that's where I'm like, I wonder again, in a post-Me Too world, if we would have more or less people with that mindset.
Right. Yeah. I would love to see some more contemporary reviews of this film and be like, oh, God, yeah, I'm just with her this whole fucking time. Chop those balls off.
Absolutely. And that's how I felt on this rewatch, to be honest.
Oh, me too. Like, I remembered that she doesn't actually do it, but I kind of hope that she did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's, again, like, to me, that scene is very cathartic, but a lot of people, I mean, you have men, like, crossing their legs when they're watching that scene. Because, again, no one wants their balls cut off, but, you know, punishment fits the crime.
There we go. I mean, she could have taken the whole dick, so.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Okay, so she wheels him into the bedroom to look for evidence to find out what kind of pedophile he is. And this is where he tries to argue that the models are just part of his portfolio, but also that he's really into environmental conservation.
Oh my God.
I mean, here's the thing. There are weird moments of dark comedy. Like, I feel like this is a through line we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks throughout this series, is that even in these deadly serious films, you can get little moments like this where this is patently ridiculous. Like, Jeff comes off looking like a fucking idiot, but I also kind of laugh because it's just such a ridiculous thing to say given the situation.
Yeah, like, what? You care about the environment, so you're fine?
Yeah, like, so I guess you've achieved a balance, Jeff. Fuck you.
I think
give me your balls.
The biggest laugh in the movie for me is when he's giving her the speech when he's tied down to the table about to get castrated, and he's like, I just don't want you to do this. Like, you think about what this is going to mean for you later. And she's like, oh, that's so sweet. You just don't want me to castrate you for my own benefit. Okay.
This is going to haunt you on your date, on your wedding day. And she's like, that's so considerate of you. Honestly, thank you for thinking of me.
It's so funny. So funny. And to be clear, we're not saying pedophilia is funny in this movie.
No, it's these little moments of levity, but also it's a kind of like sage knowing where the film anticipates certain things are going to be really tough. And I think it builds in these ideas that, like, don't cheer for Jeff. Listen to some of the fucking idiotic things that he's saying and condemn him for that.
Oh, yes, sorry. I didn't know you were going to continue with that.
I decided to stop the rant early.
No, you're fine. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so she starts going through his drawers. She's looking for things, and she ends up finding a bunch of letters, breakup letters from Janelle. And again, I mentioned that we do see a lot of eyes and mouths in this movie. And as she's reading them, we see this. And then this is when we shift into, but I haven't found any porn anywhere. And I do love these lines because I'm just like, you know, I feel like I've had a number of conversations with female colleagues over the years, particularly, you know, in an office culture thing where it's like you've got your work wife or whatever. And I feel like straight women get their backups about, like, their husband or their boyfriend or just some guy that they're seeing watching pornography. And I do appreciate that moments like this in the film where it's like, every man has pornography. Like, just maybe it's only one clip, maybe it's a whole fucking stash, maybe you're hiding it, maybe it's in plain view, but like, everybody watches porn.
I know. Well, that's the thing is I feel like people, the general societal belief is that, oh yeah, porn is a very male thing. I'm like, I know women who watch porn.
Well, sure, they're watching different types of pornography,
exactly.
But sure.
Couples tip from Trace Thurman. I would say watch porn with your partner. Show each other the porn you like to watch. It might be uncomfortable at first because it's, like your fantasies can sometimes be maybe embarrassing or whatever. But honestly,
or just different from the other person's.
Exactly. But I feel like people can feel ashamed of some of their fantasies in pornography. But I will tell you right now, watching porn with your partner, really fun, really enlightening, and it brings you closer together.
Yeah. Yeah, particularly if you can overcome that discomfort and get to a point where it's like, oh, I understand you better. And maybe now I know what you kind of want me to participate in with you.
Exactly. Not the case with this particular movie, but just general life lessons.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's still some red flags, but
just a few.
I'm more like, if your partner shows you porn where it's like, here's this underage girl, it's like, yeah, we got to have a conversation.
Right.
I'm going to turn you into the cops right now. Okay, so no porn anywhere. And this leads then to a kind of like fractured montage where Haley just goes overboard. She is tearing apart this house because she is looking for evidence.
Okay, so this is a shot or like a cut that I remember every time I watch this movie. It's right before she goes nuts and she's like, I bet what you have is so juicy. And on the word juicy, we have a close-up of Paige's lips.
Right.
And then we switch to an extreme close-up of Wilson's eyes as they change when he realizes, oh no, like, she's right.
But it's so interesting, right? Because we've used that same thing earlier, like that's the way that they're introduced in Nighthawks, right? Where we've got this extreme close-up on her lips, only it's got the chocolate, and then we see his eye seeing her. So I love that we're reframing the voyeurism into this isn't sexy hot anymore. This is, I'm about to get fucked if she finds anything.
Yeah, and not literally fucked, metaphorically.
Not literally fucked. No. So she ends up finding a gun. And then just when it seems like she's looked everywhere, she ends up... I couldn't tell if this was like a fireplace or just a rock garden, but we find the safe in there.
It's a rich person's like design choice.
Sure. I'm sorry, you have enough space in your home to just have like 6 feet of rocks.
I mean, I guess I was going to say it's a design choice. Its actual purpose is to hide the safe where he hides all of his illegal activities. But I love that she kicks the rock and we immediately, because we hear the rock sounds, and we immediately cut to him looking up going, oh shit.
Yeah. The jig is up. Okay, so this is when he realizes he needs to change tactics. So this is when he starts to become sympathetic and he says, you know what? I understand you're probably like really damaged. You're really upset. If you just need to talk to someone, if you need to scream, I can be that person. I'll listen to you. He's
like therapizing her basically.
100%. Yeah.
Your parents you're a neglected child, blah, blah, blah. And it's really funny watching this because it's so pathetic.
Yes. It's so desperate.
Sorry, desperate is the right word for it. But I think when I first saw this, I was like, girl, she's got the upper hand on you, man. Like, this isn't going to work. So no. I didn't buy this is going to work, which makes this whole monologue more stupid.
Well, and even... I almost wish we had have played this out a little longer, but initially she's like, oh my God, really? That's so kind of you. And then she just kind of goes, no, I can't keep doing this. It's so vague.
She just starts laughing. Like, did you seriously think that was going to work?
And then it takes her about 5 seconds of Janelle-related deduction to figure out the code to the safe, and we're in.
What an idiot, though, man. Like... You have 319 as your username. It's on the back of this picture. Like, come on, man.
Yep, he's real bad at this.
Well, he's sentimental.
Yeah, so again, I think that this is a very deliberate but very effective way of doing this. So we see her go through the evidence. We as an audience see nothing at all. except the way she reacts, and she says, this is some sick shit. And then we see his face, and he's crying.
Okay, so this performance that Paige gives, where he's like, this is officially sick, is a much better version of the same performance that Sherry Moon Zombie was trying to give in Halloween when she was looking at all those pictures of dead animals.
Man, you will just not let that one go.
I will not let it go. I love you, Sherry Moon Zombie, but oh my God, this is really sick.
Put it on a t-shirt. I love it.
P.S. though, because it's Donna Mauer in those photos.
Well, no, there's only one photo of Donna Mauer, and she's fully clothed, and that's what is the kind of what is different? What is special about this girl?
Did you notice that she's also standing in front of Nighthawks, though?
100%. Yeah.
So, like, you think that the coffee, maybe because there's a lot of turnaround at this coffee shop, but you would think they would keep seeing this as the meeting place of a pedophile.
Well, also, I mean, he says at one point, I met her at Nighthawks. Maybe they didn't go in, but I have to figure he would have played this out the same way.
Yeah.
Which just, that seems so fucked up because we know that there's posters for missing people. So it's like, obviously she wasn't missing, so her poster wouldn't be up there. But it's like, wait, so she was in here with the dude, and then you put up a missing girl poster, and then he comes in with a new girl.
Yeah.
This isn't setting off any? No? Okay. Minimum wage employees not paid enough.
Yeah, they don't care.
Or they can't.
They can't afford to care.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So this is upsetting to Haley, and while she is distracted, feeling the feels, this is when Jeff kicks her, and he rolls hurriedly to the bedroom so that he can get the gun. Good bit of physical action here between the two actors. He tries to shoot Haley, and she ends up wrapping his face in saran wrap.
Yeah, so, okay, the camera work, whenever we have these quote-unquote action scenes, the camera work is very frenetic. It calls to mind, like, 28 Days Later.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's shaky cam.
Yeah, but it's not, it is shaky cam, but it's not, like, found footage shaky cam.
No. Yeah, I find it effective. I couldn't help but wonder if this was one of those, like, this is an easy way to make the scene feel more dynamic and more involving, but I think also we don't have the time or the money to do it any other way.
I think that's most likely the case. It also seems, it looks music video-y.
It does, yeah.
There's a lot of digital colorization in this movie, too, which I think it adds to that. But again, I think it all works. Like, I'm not saying this is a negative.
No, I don't think it's a bad thing. It's more when you say, oh, David Slade has a background in music videos. I go, yes, he does. Yep, yeah, I can see it now.
I mean, I feel like we've talked about music video directors a lot on this podcast, and most of the time, even if the movies are like, they are visually striking.
Yeah, and sometimes it just means, like, they take a while to get into what it means to make a feature as opposed to a 2 to 5 minute music video.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so he ends up eventually passing out, and I do really like this moment because I think you could have just cut it as, you know, she hyperventilates because, ooh, that was a near miss. And she actually self-harms by smacking herself against the wall in frustration and maybe also pain.
Yeah, this is one of the few moments of loss of control that we see from Haley in this movie. And yeah, I don't,
I think it's the only time, to be honest.
Yeah. She almost loses it when Sandra Oh shows up. But, like, what do you make of this then? So, because I guess, is this feeding into the idea then that Haley might have, like, mental health problems? I mean, I guess if she's doing this, you could argue. Yeah, she has mental health problems.
Yeah, I mean, this is not the way that you should approach it. Obviously, you would be like, Haley, you're 14 years old. Please tell an adult. Please tell the police. Yeah. Like, you don't need to go through this yourself.
Honestly, I guess the only thing for me is I was like, well, wouldn't she want Donna Mauer's family to know that the killers were caught? But I guess she does. Like, that's the whole end of the movie.
Well, and it would come out because we would connect him when the police find the evidence at his house.
Right. Exactly. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's important to note, I can't remember if we've already passed it or not, but there's a point in the film where she says, you know, I could have just turned you into the police, but what would happen to you? Like, you're well off, you're white, you look great, you would get away with it. Like, it wouldn't be enough.
Yeah. Well, because what did she say? Didn't Roman Polanski just win an Oscar?
Yes, and I fucking love that line. Which is like, ooh, topical for 2005.
I know, right? Because what, The Pianist was 2002? Around there. It was around there.
Somewhere around.
Yeah.
Okay, so when Jeff awakens, he is laid flat on the table, his pants are off, and his crotch is now covered in ice.
And she's going to do some quote-unquote preventive maintenance.
Important to know that Patrick Wilson will be in this position for the next 30 to 50 minutes of this film.
Yep. Apparently at one point too, so it's after she quote unquote leaves the place, and he's trying to like get himself out. Wilson himself actually blacked out.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where it looks rough in the context of the film, and then you think these are full-on days of shooting where you're in that position with your arms above your head. I mean, he's in worse positions later, arguably. But this is the first big. I mean, there's plenty of oh shit moments in this movie, but this is the one where you're like, oh, we're going there. Yeah, there's a scene later where we can clearly see that she never took off his underwear, so the bag of ice is technically resting on his underwear over top of his dick and balls. And part of me thinks that if we made this movie nowadays, that wouldn't be the case. Like, he would just be naked from the waist down. But I think it's also a little more tasteful, because if not, we have to imagine a 14-year-old actually, like, took off an adult man's underwear.
Right.
I mean, technically she does, because she shaves him and so on. But
yeah, she definitely shaves him. She puts a little the office clip on his. I was trying to figure out where that was the whole time, and did she just get a piece of skin on his scrotum and get it, or was it like hugging his balls? I don't know, man.
I think it's the balls are below the clip so that it cuts off the blood flow completely.
Yeah, so he feels like he's numb or like things are happening to it.
Yeah, so basically under the dick. I love that I'm basically trying to draw it for you, even though this is not a video. You know what, folks? Draw it for yourself and send us the picture. Tag us.
Yeah, I'd love to see what those look like.
Oh, wait, our account just got shut down. What's going on?
But, okay, so we have two really important pieces of dialogue in this. So the first is when, she's like, you don't want me to castrate you for my own benefit, but where she's like, imagine if I had told you this with the first girl that you ever touched. Like, please, stop. Think about what you're doing. Ooh, stop.
You don't want to do that to yourself. It's, again, this is where it becomes so important that these performances rise to the level of the material, because if these sections, the interplay between the two of them, particularly now that the roles have been reversed, if they aren't believable in these heightened situations, the whole movie falls apart. So even something as simple as Elliot Page sitting and parroting this back, saying like, stop, don't do that to yourself. And then modulates it each repetitive time. So it's stop, don't do that to yourself.
Yeah.
Stop, don't do it to yourself. Like, it's just really effective.
Yeah, no, this movie is a constant show of turning the tables on not just like, again, oh yeah, it's a kid doing a pedophile, but it's like the conversations we have about this type of stuff that gets flipped on us in this movie too.
Yes. Yeah. So we do have a brief mention of nature versus nurture. I think that maybe feeds into the idea of, is this girl actually okay? What did this to her? Because I do think one of the other, subliminal questions or lingering questions that the film wants you to ask yourself is, has Haley herself been a victim of sexual assault or rape by an adult man? Like, is that what's driving her to do this? And
see, though, this is where the promising young woman connection comes into, right? Yes. Because you could believe whatever you want, because we don't know.
We don't know.
I think the easiest reading is, she was probably Donna Maurer's best friend, and when she went missing, she did some digging and found this shit.
And said, you know what, I can pull this off. I've got the tools, and I can pass for what someone is looking for.
Now, I think, though, where it might get more uncomfortable again is in the monologue Patrick Wilson gives about his childhood. And
yes, let's talk about the prune attack. So he used to play a game with his 4 or 5-year-old niece, Linny.
When he was 9 or 10.
Yes, and this was at his aunt Denise's house, and so this girl would be naked just out of bath time, would run and jump on him with prune fingers, and then Aunt Denise saw him and threatened to castrate him using the burners on the stove.
So I don't think this is meant to be, oh, this is why he's a pedophile. But
no,
I do think someone could watch this and be like, oh, like that.
Mm-hmm.
You would have sympathy for this man.
Yes.
And when it comes to pedophilia, not that it's something I think about often, but it is a psychiatric, it is a mental illness.
Yes.
But again, obviously, it's their actions. People can choose not to molest children.
Mm-hmm. And you can go on medication. You can go and get therapy for it. Yep.
Yes. And granted, I mean, I can only imagine that if you do suffer from this mental illness, I can only imagine what it's like to go into your first therapy session and be like, I have these thoughts about children. I don't empathize with Jeff, but there are parts where I'm like in a different world, you could have sought help and fixed yourself, but you made all the wrong decisions. And those are the feelings I enjoy, ? Having in a film like this.
Well, you always like films that make us ask some hard questions of ourselves, of the characters, because you don't want things to be black and white, because that's not how the real world actually works. You know, folks, we've had a conversation about pedophilia before. Go back and listen to our X-Files I Want to Believe episode, which is like a very sustained conversation about the pedophilic character in that movie. And of course, he's a priest. He's a disgraced priest. And, you know, as I mentioned off the top, we have a very difficult relationship with men who want to have a sexual relationship with children. It's just not something that we can empathize with. But you're right. I mean, when we listen to this monologue about Aunt Denise, I feel like we're meant to, yes, maybe feel a little sorry for Jeff, but also from my position, I look at it and say, what if Aunt Denise had have said, let's get you into therapy. Let's get you talking to somebody. Maybe all of this could have been avoided.
It's like a thing, right? Where it's like, well, nature versus nurture society. What does society? But pedophilia is such a taboo that we don't want to have those conversations. And I'm not sitting here on a soapbox trying to say we should feel for pedophiles more often. But at the end of the day, it is a mental illness. It is a psychiatric disorder. And it's something someone who suffers from this would need help. Now, of course, once they make that decision and molest their first of probably many children, that sympathy, empathy, whatever is out the window.
It's gone.
But it's still a thing where it's like I feel something for this man. Like, this humanizes him in a way that I appreciate that the film does, but it doesn't make him a better person.
Yeah. You know what? I think that's well said, because we feel something for him, but it doesn't at all excuse what he's been doing.
Which I love, too, because, you know, we're waiting for Haley's reaction to this. And she's not even paying attention. She's, like, fucking with her gloves. Like, these things really stick to my hands.
There's a little bit of dark comedy there, right? Where it's like he's been pouring out his soul, and she's just like, cool, let's get ready to operate.
Which I do wonder if it's kind of a thing where it's Slade and co being like, oh, yeah, you feel something for this man. We're humanizing him, but then we're shifting over to Haley, who's like, no, this is how you should be reacting to this story.
Exactly. Why are you falling for his bullshit? Even if this isn't a lie, if this is true, that's fine. He's still garbage.
Yeah.
Don't feel anything for him.
He is still either murdered someone or assisted murdered someone. Or stood by.
Yeah. He's an accomplice. He's guilt by association at the very least.
Yeah, at the very least.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the other reason that it's hard not to feel something for Jeff in these scenes is because she is so cavalier. And then this is where we get a lot of hysterical begging and pleading from Jeff. So you're just like, it's not just pathetic, but like he actively is about to be harmed. And even though he's done terrible things, we're just like, oh no, like don't do this. Don't hurt him this way. And then you're like, ugh, fuck, this movie, it got me again.
That's the thing, you're right. It's making you have like some really confronting thoughts and conversations with yourself in the moment. And I just think it doesn't maybe make for a more fun viewing experience, but it makes for a much more engaging viewing experience.
100%. If the movie is making you think or even making you question why do you feel the way that you feel, I would say that it is doing its job. Important to note that when he's doing this begging, he offers, I will go to the police. I will tell them anything you want me to say. But he will not say that he harmed Donna.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Haley has not been listening, nor does she really care about this. She actually compliments him on the story. She's like, that was well told. So then she gets down to operating. And again, we don't see anything, just like when she was looking through the evidence in the safe.
So there is a moment, though, where, you know, she makes it, she's like almost agrees to make a deal with him. But then she says, I think very sincerely, I shouldn't have teased you like that. I shouldn't have let you think there was a way out of this.
Right.
But the tone she has is much less confrontational. It almost sounds empathetic coming out of Haley's mouth. And the way Paige delivers it, I think he does a really good job with this. But do you think that Haley is being sincere with this? Or is she just putting on another act where she's just fucking with him again?
I kind of think it's another act.
Okay.
But only because, like, so she performs this surgery, quote unquote.
Yeah.
We hear a bunch of very uncomfortable Foley. Again, I love the way that Slade is shooting this, where it's like we're panning up Jeff's body, like sort of horizontally.
But then we're in his POV looking at her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think it's just very cleverly shot. It fragments him in the way that he has done with his models and the photos.
Yes. Well, and I can tell you right now that this scene is probably why he wanted those Dolby surround sound speakers to be working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like this is proper body horror stuff, because we're just left to our imaginations, but we're hearing things and we can fill in the blanks of what we think is happening.
And that's the thing, right? Like, I mean, this is an R-rated film, but it's not a gory one. I mean, like, it is rated R for disturbing, violent, and aberrant sexual content involving a teen and for language.
Okay, yeah.
But that's the thing, right? Like, just disturbing and violent sexual content. I mean, I guess we're having conversations about pedophilia, but it's more like, it's like the underlying feel of this movie, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and you would say that this is the sexualized violence, right? Like, we are threatening to cut off a man's balls.
I guess in my mind, I'm like, this isn't sexual, but yes, it is sexual.
It's definitely sexual, Trace.
But we don't see, because it's not really happening, we don't see anything. There's no blood. I think we can see, like, the fake footage she has on the TV screen, like, kind of like in the background, but we never focus on it.
Yeah. You mean the Saw X school for medical procedures?
Okay, when I saw Saw 10, I was like, oh, it's the hard candy treatment.
Love it. You know what? These films are set in the same universe.
Yeah.
Jigsaw and Haley just getting together for like a drink. So how are you going to fuck up your person? Oh, Haley, have you decided to use the ball clamp like I told you? Oh, yeah.
Make sure you reference unixquestions.com.
It's a fake site. I set it up for you. It should be really convincing.
You better believe that I tried to go to unixquestions.com just in case, just to see. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Or maybe it doesn't exist anymore, at least.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, did that domain just lapse? Or, you know what? Is it still out there for the taking people?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we do this surgery, and Haley is delighted. It seems like it's been successful. Jeff is covered in sweat and crying, so mission accomplished. And then she gives him feedback about how he can take care of himself. And this is where she sits down and says, you know, I kind of pity you. Not in those words exactly, but she does say, you know, you're not going to be able to have sex. You're not going to shower in public. You're not even going to be able to get a physical with a doctor without having to explain what's happened to you for the rest of your life.
You know, unrelated to the subject matter of this movie, but I do have a family member who is, he had to have both of his testicles removed because he had testicular cancer, and it hit really fast. Like, really, it was like we found out, and like a month later, he was having both of his balls removed, and so I got to see him early this year, and it was one of those things where I was like, well, can we talk about it? Like, is it a thing that we can say? Because I have so many questions, and luckily he was very forthcoming, and it's like, yeah, he can still have sex. He just has has to take a testosterone shot every, I want to say it's every couple weeks, I think. Well, when he has that shot, because it's like a testosterone boost, he is like super, super horny.
Oh, boy. Okay. So it's like 0 to 60 when you get the shot.
Basically, and it like weans off over the days until his next shot.
Wild.
Sorry, I'm not laughing at him, y'all, but it was a refreshingly candid conversation.
Well, I think it's one of those things where we just don't have enough information because it's not something that happens to everybody, but also not something that a lot of people would feel comfortable talking about.
Well, and that's why I'm not naming who this person is, of course. But it's interesting because I asked, like, well, did you get like the replacement, like false testicles?
Yeah, the fake balls.
And he didn't. He was like, no, honestly, it was another surgery, and I didn't want to do another surgery down there, so I'm just hanging free.
That is wild. I never considered that. Yeah, you would. I guess I figured that they would take them out and then you would put in the fake ones at the same time so you wouldn't have to have a second surgery, but you would probably need to let it heal.
Yeah, I think that might be the case because you can't have them like swinging around in your scrotum while that's. Well, though I guess you got to put them in that way. You know what? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. You know what? We don't know. We're just speculating.
But he opted to not have false testicles put in.
Okay, so question for you: would you?
You know, I think it would depend on how I felt at the time because I guess, you know, with his form of cancer, it was very aggressive. So I think he was already physically drained by the time that happened.
Like, I'm not feeling precious about my looks. I'm basically just trying to recover.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe if it was something where, I caught the lump really early and I'm getting one swapped out or just maybe. But I mean, again, like, ask me if it actually happens to me and maybe it'll be a different answer.
Yeah. See, I feel like if I had both of them out, I'd just be like, whatever, we're done. If I had one of them taken out, no, because maybe then you've just got the one. You're like, cool, I still got one. Yeah, no, because I know someone who's had one removed because of testicular cancer, and he has just the one left, and he's fine with that. Although he was very self-conscious about it. He was like really embarrassed to tell me, and I was like, don't be embarrassed about that. Like, it's still a penis. It's just people's bodies, right? We're so fucked up with just how we look, quote unquote, normally. And then as soon as you start to make alterations or something starts to go wrong and you're just like, no, I'm not like everybody else, as though everyone isn't going through weird shit of their own and that kind of stuff. But we don't like to talk about it because it's like, quote unquote, weird. I mean, it's easy for me to say, don't be embarrassed about your one testicle because I'm not in that position. Like, you know, if I was in that position, maybe I would feel differently. I don't know. Right. Yeah, so we'll come back when you get your testicular cancer results, and then you have to make a decision. Knock on wood. Terrible. That sounded like the meanest fucking thing. I get what you're saying. Here, let me just make a joke here. Ha ha. Fuck. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so Jeff does not take this. Well, technically he does take it lying down because he's still strapped, but he threatens to track her down, and she's just like, fuck you, I'm hot. I can't stop sweating. I'm going to go shower. Which, okay. Such a fake out. Isn't it funny, too, that it's this and funny games, right? Okay, well, bye. I'm going to leave you to your own devices. We'll see how far you get. Well, okay, so question, though, because he gets out of this, and he dials 911, but doesn't press send. She knows that he isn't going to do it. Like, she had to have known that he could possibly get out. So I think she factored in, just based on the research, the knowledge that she had of him, that he would not dial and he would not make the call. For sure. I guess and this is like a what if scenario, but it's like, she's clearly testing him here, even though she quote unquote knows he's guilty, so he's not going to call the cops. What if he had? I mean, I guess hypothetically, she's already found the evidence, so she would probably do what she threatens to do when Janelle shows up. Which is, you know, I would say, oh my God, he attacked me. Look at this. Oh, by the way, there's a bunch of evidence. Yeah. So I guess she wins either way. Yeah. Well, he's fucked either way. There we go. Yeah. The flip side of it. So he ends up opting for a scalpel and heads for the shower, presumably to what? Kill her? I'm going to say yes. Yeah? Yeah. I think so. Well, I mean, look, do you believe that he killed Donna Maurer, or do you believe he was just taking photos of it? I mean, in my mind, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. But in the case of this, is he capable of killing? The way he reacts makes me think that if he thought his life was in danger of being ruined by somebody, like if he thought he was about to go down, I think he would do it. Yeah. You know what's funny is, I mean, I understand Janelle would find out either way, but I think he's more worried about Janelle finding out than the world finding out. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's why I think it's so interesting that he is humble, quote unquote, about her rise to stardom. I think it's because he contributed to it. He probably feels a sense of ownership over it. And we've not really talked about the toxic masculinity of it all, but like the way he is posturing and boisterous and very self-aggrandizing as a photographer, to me, is very much a toxic masculinity trait. But even the language he uses when he's talking about Janelle, like he's like, oh yeah, I wanted to tell you how much of a bitch she was to me. And
We'll get
but
to
he
it.
also wants her back, and he doesn't want to look weak in her eyes and all this other bullshit.
100%. Well, even and there is like it's an extended scene where Haley is reading the letter from Janelle, where she's basically breaking up with him, and there's a lot more like affection from Janelle in the extended scene that's I think removed from the final cut.
Yeah,
but the result's the same. Like you're not the person I thought you were, and so I just can't keep doing this. But it's very much like I love you, I'll always love you, I wish you the best, but I just like, and it also makes me wonder like what was the catalyst for that, right? Like what made her say you're not the person I thought you were? Because it clearly wasn't something about pedophilia.
Oh, you don't think so?
No, because
otherwise she wouldn't come to his house.
Well, I think that, but also he's so worried about her finding out about the pedophilia. So I'm like, unless it's like, oh, this will cement her suspicions about it.
Yeah, see, that's how I read it. I actually read it as she probably found his porn, and then they broke up, and that's why he doesn't have any of it.
Well, or actually, because whenever she's trying to find out the year for the safe, she's like 89.
Right.
I wonder how old Janelle would have been.
Oh, she was underage.
That's the thing. And so I wonder if Janelle, as an underage girl, when she got older, she was like, this is weird. So maybe she did know about the pedophilia because she was one of the victims, but she doesn't know the extent of it.
Yeah, that seems very possible. I mean, and then you're just like, oh, but he's got pictures up all over. Did he only put those up after she wasn't in the picture anymore?
Well, but see,
or was it all just out there for everybody to see the whole fucking time?
But see, I actually think that she was his first.
Oh, I think so too.
But like also the first like model, her rise to fame got him, like, put him on the map. So I don't think these pictures would have existed when he was dating her.
Oh, I see. Interesting. Isn't it so funny how we've decided all of these narrative threads, even though the film only gives us the tiniest little pieces of information?
Yeah, and you could argue none of it matters. He's a pedophile.
Yeah, no, I just think it's interesting because Janelle is simultaneously so much a character in this film, and yet not at all.
Oh, but every time, so I think we see her face maybe once, but so many times when she's actually on camera, she's not facing the camera, so we don't even get to see this poor actress's face.
Yeah, I think we see her full frame maybe when she parks the car or one of the driving scenes.
No, we do, but not the first one because like she parks the car, she walks up to the driveway, and we're behind her. We cut away, we cut back, and then she kind of looks around like, where is he? And that's when we see her face. But that's it.
Okay. Yeah. And again, you have to assume that's a deliberate choice.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so, we neglected to mention that when Jeff breaks free and grabs the scalpel, he has discovered that the whole thing was a fucking ruse. Like, he ejects the tape from the video cassette player. Obviously, he pulls off the clamp and realizes his balls are still there.
Well, and there were people that were confused as to whether or not the castration actually happened. And everyone,
really?
When he says, I'm all here...
Yeah.
That means his balls are still there.
I think it's because we hear her put something in the carburetor and we don't know. Like,
well, she had something.
Yeah. I mean, I assume this is the equivalent of when you go to a fun house at Halloween and they're like, put your hand in this pumpkin. Those are brains. Ooh, These are eyeballs. And it's like, no, those are peeled grapes.
Well, you can also find like cow's testicles like to eat. So maybe she went to a butcher shop and was like, can I get 2 mountain oysters, please?
There we go. Yeah, a delicacy.
Yeah, really good.
Okay, so he tries to attack her in the shower. She is not there. She is ready with a fucking taser. So she is full final girl status now. She's got her phallic weapon. Taste.
Oh, in the shower too. So he's getting like these shocks in water.
Yes, I thought that too.
Yeah, it's rough.
Would hurt extra. So he blacks out. In the meantime, she has started to clean up. She has typed out a very unconvincing suicide note, and she has strung him up with a rope so that if he slips off this chair, he will hang himself in the kitchen.
And she calls Janelle. Posing as Lieutenant Haley with the LAPD.
It's too funny. I mean, again, not funny, but I just love how she has contingency upon contingency plan ready to go.
I mean, yes. Does this strain credibility with, like, can a 14-year-old really do this? Although I would actually argue it's more likely that a 14-year-old can do this today than it was back in 2005.
100%. All the stuff about, oh, I know that your neighbors aren't here. It's like, yeah, I probably hacked into your Ring camera from your door and saw you saying goodbye to the neighbors and stuff.
Yeah, I've been spying on you with a drone for the past 3 months.
Exactly. Oh, God, it's so terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
So I said that she's got contingency plan upon contingency plan, but what she is clearly not ready for is Miss Takuda, played by Sandra Oh, because these lies are unconvincing.
I will say, the only so we see a shot earlier. Haley goes on the roof, and we see hands, like, trimming a rose bush. This is, of course, to be Sandra Oh. In Haley's whole monologue about, oh, your neighbor's in this, and this, she didn't account for this one?
Well, I think she only looked at the immediate neighbors on either side, and Miss Takuda says, I'm the neighbor from 3 houses down.
Oh.
That's how I read it.
Okay, no, you're 100% correct. I missed 3 houses down.
Yeah. And she's looking for a babysitter, and she's got Girl Scout cookies. This is such a silly, non-essential role, but I love that it's Sandra Oh.
100%. You could cut this scene from the movie, and it doesn't really make a difference, but I think it's important just to see how Haley handles surprises.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite, I can just hear this line delivery living rent-free in my head, but it's when she says something about the rain, and, like, Sandra Oh just waits a bit, and she just goes, did it rain?
Yeah, even when she says, oh, he's my uncle. Oh, he's sick. I think I've just got to get back in there. So how do you read this? Do you read it as Sandra Oh is not believing this girl, but also she's not prepared to call her out? Like she's doing that kind of bystander effect? Or do you think she has any kind of inkling about Jeff? Because the fact that she's there delivering
Girl Scout cookies
to me is just such a tip off.
Yeah, because that's the other thing too, because by the end of the film when Haley leaves, I'm like, okay, but like the cops are going to be there saying this man, I guess they'll say it's a suicide, but isn't Sandra Oh going to be like, well, there was this 14-year-old girl here.
Mm-hmm. But also she's delivering the cookies as opposed to her daughter, which maybe tells me that she doesn't trust Jeff.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, because I don't buy for a second that she believes Haley. Like everything, all of her questions are like, I'm getting a workaround on you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, so true. So anyway, we end up getting rid of her and Haley comes back in, and this is where she presents Jeff with 2 options. So she can either leave him like this and he can run the risk that he accidentally kills himself or that he gets discovered, or he can kill himself right here now and she will clean up the evidence so that no one ever suspects anything except for the fact that he died by suicide.
Yeah. I also, oh God, this is a fun play on words, but I mean, she's like, pretty please with the cherry on top. Mm-hmm. One that you just had to pop.
Ugh. No remorse. She is just like, yeah, you're disgusting, and I'm going to say it with gross puns.
Oh, it's like, did you call the police? Did you run for help like an innocent person would?
I love it. I love it so much.
It's real good.
Yeah, I also love that she flips the script. So earlier she said, like, here's what would happen if I went to the police. This is what would happen to you. And it's basically nothing. And he's now saying, you can't do this to me because you will get caught. Like, they will find you. And she basically says, oh, I would get community service. People would pay for my legal fund. It's the Timothy Oliphant.
Yeah.
Johnny Cochran would be lining up to do my legal defense.
And Jodie Foster's going to direct the movie.
I fucking love it because, of course, this is like, staunch feminist, also queer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we knew that back in 2006. I don't think so.
Jodie Foster's
knew the rumors.
Well, yeah, she was heavily rumored. I remember when I was a kid, my dad talking about it, but she didn't come out about it until I think after 2010.
Yeah, but obviously, this is a reference to The Accused, Jodie Foster's infamous role where she played a rape victim.
Right, but she wasn't directing that.
Well, no, but it's like she has an interest, and now that she is directing.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Haley has strayed a little too close to Jeff, and he is able to nearly choke her with his legs. It's a brazen move, because if he did this wrong, he would just die by strangulation.
Yeah. But you know what? What does he get to lose?
I guess, yeah, at this point, nothing. So we end up with some cat and mouse. They end up on the roof.
Okay, wait.
Oh, okay, I'm jumping ahead. Yeah.
Just because the moment when he stabs the photo... Yes. Over and over and over and over. And he starts screaming, "You're just like her. You're all just fucking like her."
Yeah.
And then he finishes after stabbing this thing like 10 times. Mm-hmm. "Thank you. This is me. This is who I am. Thank you for helping me see it."
Yeah. Is this him finally accepting that he is a bad fucking dude?
I think so. Which I would argue maybe makes the final scene of an easier... Well, it's already easy, but an easier pill to swallow. Because this is, I feel like, let's say he hadn't died, then he'd be like, you know what, fine, I've embraced my identity now, and I'm gonna go rape a bunch of little girls, and I'm gonna go murder them too.
Ugh, yeah. Yeah, and this is interesting, though, this idea that this is what it took to help him realize that he is a monster. I mean, I see the Aunt Denise story as somehow more of a testament where he looks at it and is like, I've kind of always been this way. And this feels more like, okay, we're in a slasher movie finale and I've got a knife and I'm like, yep, I guess I'm going to have to fucking kill you.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be both. It can be all those things.
I think so. But he's not going to get to do that.
No. So we end up on the roof. Janelle is driving up she's making her way up. And this is where Haley says, "Hey, I've got another noose. The deal still stands. All you got to do is wrap it around that neck and take a jump. Take a long walk off the roof, buddy."
I love that she's got a backup noose up there.
I do too. I mean, as I said, contingency upon contingency.
Contingency upon contingency.
So this is where Jeff says, "I will track you down. Like, I will get out of this and you will never be able to stop looking over your shoulder." And she just goes, "Oh, did you believe anything I told you? How do you know anything I told you was the truth?"
And I love that because then she becomes like this blanket for every sexual assault survivor. She's like, "I'm every little girl you ever watched, touched, hurt, screwed, killed."
Yeah. Ugh. I would say that is like one of the humdingers of this movie. Like, Paige gets a lot of really good line deliveries, and this one is the rape revenge. Fuck yeah, I want to see this asshole go down. Like, that line is so fucking good.
But it's not the end, though, because Jeff has one more card to pull out of his sleeve.
Yeah, so it turns out that he was involved in what happened to Donna Mayer. It wasn't him, though. He was just taking pictures. He didn't actually commit the murder, so he offers the name of the other person, Trace.
Oh, yeah. I know. I'll tell you his name, and I'll help you find him. And what does she say, Joe?
She's already taken care of Aaron.
This is like the sequel to a movie we never saw.
Yeah, like, this is the orphan first kill. It's Haley's first kill where she already did all of this, which, again, to my mind, justifies how good she is at doing all of this because she's already been through it once before.
She's had practice, absolutely. But that's not even the big reveal, though, because she's like, yeah, I know his name. I've done this before. Funny fact, he told me you did it before he killed himself.
Yeah, which I think is another smart move on behalf of the screenplay, because even if we wanted to feel any kind of sympathy for Jeff, for the progress he's made, for that scene where he says, like, I guess this is who I fucking am, he still doesn't accept his responsibility with Donna. And I think this casts enough doubt that we realize we don't actually know anything about Haley. And we also don't know anything about Jeff.
That's the thing, though, right? Because it's Patrick. It's kind of the double factor of like the Sandra Bullock effect we were talking about last week, where it's like, oh, it's really hard to buy Sandra Bullock in this dark, gritty role.
Sure.
But it works here for Wilson because he disarms you.
100%. Yeah. He's so easy to get on board with, which, as you said earlier, I think is what makes it so effective, because this is how they actually are. They do disarm you. Like, that's how they're able to pass. Oh, I keep saying the word pass, and I'm like, no, we use pass in a different way in the queer community. But in this light, this is how they get away with it, right? Because they can convince you. They can lie so convincingly that you will feel something for them. You will believe them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's run out of options because that was his last and best final gambit, and she just like volleys it back in his face. So he puts on the noose and he takes a long walk. And again, Slade refrains from showing us any violence, so he walks off in slow motion, but we don't see the body.
Ooh, but this shot though, like because it's done at like sunset, so you see them, but because of the lighting, they look like silhouettes. And
yes,
the slow motion as you watch him step off the ledge, and then you see the rope like tighten the slack.
Yep.
Oh man, and it's timed perfectly because the second that rope like tightens and gets taut, we then cut back into regular time. Oh, because before he stepped off, she's like, "Don't worry, I'll hide everything. I'll take care of it." And then we cut, and she just goes, "Or not."
Yeah, just deadpan. I won't lie. The first time I saw this, I thought that she was lying about the rope. Like there wasn't enough rope for him to die, that he would actually just land on the ground and she'd be like, haha, no, I want to send you to prison. So I was kind of surprised that she actually did let him die.
Well, that's the thing, because I feel like in any revenge film, like, okay, if I was getting revenge on someone, I would want them to know, and I mean, obviously he knows,
right?
But I want everyone to know, and I want him to go through this public humiliation. But no, she's just like, no,
suffer.
I'm going to kill you and ruin your reputation post-mortem.
Yeah, it's wild. And
it's,
clearly she doesn't do it for him. Like, you know, she told him everything he needed to know to get to the outcome she wanted. But at the end of the day, it was never about making him pay. She wanted him to pay, but she also wanted the truth about Donna to come out.
Oh, yeah. She wants that retribution.
Yeah, which I just think is nice because, as we said, Janelle's not really a character. Donna is not a character. Like, it's a figure in a photograph. But so much of the movie is about who gets to speak for the people who don't have a voice anymore. And it's like, I think it's important that Janelle barely has a line in this because it's about what Jeff has turned Janelle into in his mind.
Right.
And how that drives his motivations. But also, it's the same for Haley and Donna.
Yeah, well, it's what you talking about Dead Girl, right? Where we're talking about like, don't you want to learn more about the Joanne character? Like, no, because we're filtering this through the toxic masculinity like lens. Like he doesn't see her as a person,
right? Yeah, yeah, and even the fact that he says like, I was just taking photographs.
Oh, I know.
You're
as
talking
it makes
about
it better.
An underage girl that you watched get murdered as you took photographs, like. How do you think that makes you exempt?
I know. God, but doesn't a part... I mean, we'll never get this, obviously, but like a part of me was like, I kind of want to see the Aaron movie, though.
I mean, I would watch it in a heartbeat. Yeah.
It's like the Saw 10. We got to see him like doing a trial run for his next couple traps.
Oh, boy. As long as we don't have to like de-age Elliot Page so that we can get him back to repeat this performance. But honestly, it's such a compelling performance that Here's the thing. I've watched Elliot Page in probably half of their films. I think that this is probably one of their best. The minute that they start to venture more into traditional kind of populist fare, like I don't think he's bad in the X-Men movie.
Well, that's not a good movie, though.
No, but I mean, even something like The Umbrella Academy, which actually gave the character he was playing, who initially started the series as female and then ended up having a trans coming out sequence in the third season, like it's a great arc for that character, but I don't think it's their best performance. And I think something like Hard Candy really gives him an opportunity to shine as a performer. Like, this is such a fucking good role for him. And I wish that we were getting more of these kinds of performances from him.
I will give you two others I think are really good. I don't know if you've seen them, actually. So one is Whip It, the Drew Barrymore movie with the roller derby.
I love Whip It. Yes, I've actually covered that on my YA podcast. And that one is, okay, so I wanted to bring this up earlier because obviously we mentioned that we would talk about the transness and then kind of haven't. But I think it's so fascinating that Page took a bunch of really hyper feminine roles or films that were about performative gender before he transitioned. And I don't think there's a disconnect in the way that he ever played the roles, but I was fascinated that it almost seemed like he was trying out these very female roles to be like, yep, this isn't me. This is not a good fit for me. I can convincingly play this role, but this is not who I am, and I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. The other one, okay, have you seen James Gunn's Super?
Oh, I haven't. I didn't even realize he was in it.
Yeah. So it's Rainn Wilson. And it's a superhero movie, but like set in the real world where this like nerdy guy, Rainn Wilson, like he's like, I'm going to be a superhero and like fight crime.
Right.
But it's like an R-rated like action comedy. And Elliot Page plays his sidekick, Bolty.
Okay.
And he delivers a manic performance.
Really?
It is.
Oh.
It's one of the most, I would say the character is not particularly likable and is quite obnoxious, but that's by design.
I mean, I think that's the film, right? A lot of the early James Gunn films have that kind of tone to them.
Yeah, but also that the cast in this movie, it's Rainn Wilson, Elliot Page, Liv Tyler, Kevin Bacon, Nathan Fillion.
Oh. Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Highly recommend Super. But I would say it's not the easiest watch.
Yeah. Is it of its time?
Not even that. It's just, it's just very dark. So if you say, I'm going to go watch a superhero movie.
Right.
This is a hard R-rated borderline parody of superhero movies. And it is funny, but it's not silly. Like it's very graphically violent.
Okay. Good to know.
But yeah, he's really good in it. Page is great.
Okay. Cool.
But, okay. Yeah. So that is Hard Candy. Any final thoughts on this, Joe?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that we deliberately ended Toxic Masculinity Month on this title. Like, we didn't say, oh, and Hard Candy is the
we're going to finish it off.
But I think it is an interesting deviation / encapsulation of a lot of the things that we've been talking about. Like, if nothing else, I think some of the other films have been more interested in interrogating it. Like, I think this was an interesting choice because it's not the most obvious pick. And yet, I think everything around the Jeff character to me screams toxic masculinity, entitlement, performative traits, and just I love that we're also seeing this through the eyes of this 14-year-old girl who just calls bullshit on all of it.
Yeah, and I think, it's not that we're conflating toxic masculinity with pedophilia, because I think you see Jeff's toxic masculinity in the ways that he talks about Janelle.
Right.
But yeah, no, I think, I guess outside of the film itself, I guess I just want to kind of thank everyone for coming on this particular journey with us. We know this has not been easy. If you didn't watch all the films, that's also totally fine. We hope you've enjoyed, quote unquote, the episodes and conversations we've had about these films.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm happy it's over.
I'm happy we did it, and I'm happy to move forward. Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to say that. But yeah, this is a 5-star film. I love it, and it totally held up for me.
There we go.
Well, before we announce what we're covering next week to close out November, first, some housekeeping. If you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us on Twitter and Instagram at HorrorQueers. Shoot us an email at horrorqueers@gmail.com. Find us on Letterboxd to keep track of all the films we've covered. Go to our YouTube channel to check out our interviews with various horror filmmakers, and tune in once a month to hear about our most anticipated horror films for that month. If you want to chat with other listeners, please join our Facebook Horror Queers group. And if you have a moment, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you want even more content, please support the show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/horrorqueers. If you subscribe today, you will get 275 hours of Patreon content. I know, right? Including this month's new episodes on Hell House LLC Origins, The Carmichael Manor, Birth Rebirth, The Fall of the House of Usher, Five Nights at Freddy's, Thanksgiving, and our audio commentary on the original Child's Play for its 35th anniversary.
I gotta say, I loved that we had a month where it seemed like all of the titles were about 1 to 2 words, and then half of the titles this month have been, 4 words or longer. It's like, what is happening?
I mean, Hell House Origins LLC, The Carmichael Man. I mean, that's
I laugh
a novel.
every time. I laugh every time you say it.
But, Joe.
Yes.
Since we're not doing Toxic Masculinity next week, what are we discussing?
Well, I'm going to spoil who our guest is.
Sure.
Because I feel like this has been driven by your better half, Trace. So we are going to venture into what I think might be the first time we have ever broached the subject of cryptids. We're going to talk about the Mothman prophecies.
Yes, a movie that I feel like has been getting like a lot of talk in the past couple years.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if it's been a reappraisal so much as people just remembering this movie exists.
Yeah, very much. And I saw this in theaters and I liked it because, PG-13 horror. But I will say I did rewatch this like 5 or 6 years ago, and I like it, but I will say there are some supremely creepy moments in this movie.
Yeah, I also saw it in theaters. I remember liking it, but feeling that it was like, oh, it's more of a drama than a horror film.
It is.
I think that's fine, but yeah, I remember being very upset by the climax of this movie because it's just really, really well done.
Oh, let me just tell you, Joe, it has one of the best and scariest phone call conversations you'll ever see in a horror movie.
Ooh, I'm going to turn off the lights and turn the sound way up.
Just remember, Indrid Cold. Just remember that.
Oh boy, who could forget?
But until next time, everyone, we can cross out hard candy.
Indeed, and cross out Toxic Masculinity Month and horror queers.
Atlas Avenue, a long stretch of road that encompasses everything the city of Kennett Heights has to offer. Neon lights, traffic, crime, the hustle and bustle of everyday life, and the craziest of characters. My office was above it all. My name is James Locke, and I'm a PI.
Hello, Mr. J. How the hell you doing today?
Good, Edith. Nearly every year I have a new case. New people to meet, new clues to discover, and new problems to solve. But I do it the old-fashioned way. No technology. Nothing post-1950. Hell, I don't even listen to podcasts, but you should. Atlas Avenue Beat is a spoof of the film noir genre with goofy characters, tons of wordplay, and non-stop raunchy humor. There's also 3 whole seasons out right now with more on the way. Just search for Atlas Avenue Beat wherever you listen to podcasts or visit us online at bloody.fm.